Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 8 of The Whole Story. My name is Exuki Z, and tonight I've got a couple great guests to come chat with us, and we're going to be telling everybody about a little bit about how some wormhole space perspectives on recent development. We're going to talk about future what we think might be coming up in the future. We're going to touch on prolonged blackout. I mean, locals or nullsec's been without local for a good month now, so we'll get some perspectives on how corps are either enjoying or not enjoying that, and see where that takes us. So, without further ado, I'm gonna cut over to the screen we've got with all of my guests here, and we're gonna start off with some introductions. Again, uh, so I've again, I'm Exuki Z, which I'll repeat like 4 times because last time I got told I didn't say it enough. So that's me, and we'll start out with Lord Darkfire.
Hey guys, this is Lord Darkfire, CEO of a small wormhole corp called Ronin One. We are a small gang wormhole corp, kind of like the Chihuahuas of wormhole who will come bite your ankle.
Ankle biters, huh?
Mm,
All right, how long have you guys been in wormhole space?
if you want to count how long I've been living in wormhole space with my personal corporation, then yes, about 4 years now. But I think we started recruiting pretty hard starting in April last year, and since then we've had a lot of fun, done some evictions and defended against some, and recently we killed a capital ship all by ourselves. It was fun.
That's always a great time. What kind of capital was it?
It was a Phoenix in a C5 wormhole belonging to a Russian. I posted it on our Eve. We were on the front page. We were also excited.
Great. Well, glad to have you. Scarcia, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself and what corporation you fly with?
Yeah, so we're actually new to Wormholes. We've been in Wormholes for about 4 months. So the Alliance is loosely affiliated. We're about 200 members right now. We're living in a C5 state. Um, we got into Wormholes. We started in a C6 and picked a fight with no vacancies. Got our nose bloodied pretty hard, and then moved to a C5. Um,
There
yeah, we're
can only
pretty.
be one C6 corps.
Yeah, we learned that the hard way.
So you said you guys moved down to C5 space. Which static did you say you had?
We're C5, so it's C5 connect.
It's a good place to be. I'd say I think that's where a lot of the cool kids are hanging out these days.
That's what I've been told. So I wanted to be, of course, with the cool.
So what led you to deciding to take the plunge into wormhole space itself?
Um, I got tired of null sex. I was in goons for about 15 years, 14 years, and then decided that I was tired of that play style and wanted to go into wormholes. So me and a group of people decided to get together and form a corp, subsequently forming an alliance and dive.
Alrighty. Well, rolling right along, the one and only C6 Wormhole Corp out there. Do you want to tell us a bit about yourself, James?
Yes, sir. All right. I'm the CEO of Dead Star Syndicate, and we are a C6 Wormhole Corp. We actually live out of a Wolf Rayette. Usually you're pumping out over 1,000 DPS in a frigate, and usually catching people with their pants down. So that's how we like to roll in there. We are freaks, like some of you think. Uh, I'd say we started the corp about 2014, so maybe about 5 years ago. We started in a C3 with a low sec static. We used to jump out, hop in frigates, go fractional warfare, that sort of thing, and then we moved up to a C2 and a C5 along the way, and now we're here in a C6, and we're loving our C5 static. I wish there was a lot more groups to brawl with, but outside of that, we're doing pretty good for being about 5 years old.
Do you think that living in a C6 reduces the amount of corporations that you get to brawl with, though, since most of them can't roll into you while you can roll into them.
Kind of. Um, on the flip side of that, I've got a lot of competent scanners, so we're hitting that chain. Groups may not roll into us, but we're going to find you one way or another. So I think, yeah, it makes it a little bit harder, but we compensate for that.
For the people unfamiliar with wormhole space, I wasn't just memeing. I believe James Rapture and his corporation Dead Star Syndicate are actually the only, I'll use air quotes, real corporation living in C6 space. Um, there's a little over 120 of them, I think, now that they've added Shattered. It used to be 112 pre the Shattered Wormhole Edition. But almost that whole, all the C6 space is just farms. Um, and so most of the corporations that he'd be brawling with live in C5. So while he rolls into them with a static 5, they can't roll into him. And so sometimes that might mean maybe that's what they're looking for though. So and speaking
Well,
of, oh, go ahead.
well, the reason we took a lot of advantages, right? So you're right. Groups aren't going to roll into us as easily, but we've got a lot of lower skill point guys. So, if you do happen to roll into us, we're going to give you a fight anyways. So I kind of like that about our whole, you won't see us much, but when you do, you're probably going to get a fight.
This is true. So, speaking of C5 corporations, last but certainly not least, Kale, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself and who you fly with?
Yeah, my name is Kale Kaderu. I'm a director in Of Sound Mind. We're a C5 Corp, as Exuki mentioned. And I like to say we have a dual specialty in PvP and logistics. So we like to get into the big, at least for wormholes, heavy armor brawls when we can. And we also like to do the crazy logistics things that people don't think are possible.
Can you give an example of an impossible task that Sound has accomplished?
Well, the ones that we've accomplished are clearly not impossible, but I can tell you the one that I did yesterday, which is for laughs. People kept telling us that a corp of about 100 people can't claim Sov, um, and certainly not out of a wormhole, and we have now done that twice. So that's one example. That one's a little bit out of our usual comfort zone. But more common stuff is logistics relating to evictions and other, like, trying to punch above our weight kind of stuff.
Out of curiosity, where did you guys claim sovereignty?
At the moment, and it's, I guess it's a little risky to publicize this, but you can also just go on Dotlan and look. We have two systems in Geminate at the moment. I'm suspecting one of them is going to disappear in a day or so. And then one system in, I dropped it yesterday and I don't remember. It's somewhere down in the southeast.
I already
No.
lost it. I can't even remember what Sov we took.
Yeah, I mean, people were just telling us we couldn't. So I was like, all right, it costs about 100 mil to build a TCU. Why not?
Well, good stuff, good stuff. So that's everybody we've got on here tonight. So the three big ticket items that I was going to try to touch on for anybody that's joined us since I already read it off a bit here at the right here at the beginning, excuse me, is we're gonna talk about. I mean, Blackout's been going on for a month, so I don't know if we're gonna spend a tremendous amount of time on it, but I wanted to get some wormholer perspectives and also see if anyone's got any good Blackout stories so far. And then we're going to touch on Sino changes. Does anybody here care? Maybe we don't. Maybe we do. But it's certainly. I think it'd be silly to not at least mention them since they're the current big deal. And then we're gonna theory just guess and speculate a bit on what do we think is next or what do we hope is next. So I mean, if you've listened to Rise's interview, Hilmar's interview from a couple of weeks ago, I think CCP's made it fairly clear that their intention is to kind of keep that ball rolling. And Hilmar, I think, is the one that coined it as the era of chaos. So something's happening. We don't get to know what, but I think something big's just coming every month. So we know about September, and we'll just guess what do we think's coming in October. So starting from the top, and anybody here can jump in, whoever wants to really go first. But how are your corporations enjoying Blackout? I mean, it's been over a month now, and it doesn't seem like there's an end in sight. Are you guys loving it? Do you guys hate Blackout? Is it indifferent to you?
We're loving. We're loving it. I mean, uh, one of my main recruiting things has always been about, hey, if you were a null sector, please come join us, and let's show you what real small gang PvP is about. What you've been missing out. And this was before the blackout, so we already had a bunch of people who were disillusioned with nullsec and hated it. And when they found out, after learning to be a wormholer, when they found out that nullsec was losing local, they understood this kind of psychological impact it's going to have on all those null bears. So we instantly knew this was going to be great content for us. We've been going out on roams. We've been using shield VNIs of all things to gank poor ratters, and you know, we're super excited to see what the new sign changes are going to be too. By the way, I think that's going to be a big boon for most small gang folks.
I
Or
agree completely. Uh, so sound is not too often. I mean, we get to nullsec, but a lot of what we do is in wormhole space. But you know, when we do go out to nullsec, it's great to not have everything vanish before I get to finish a loading screen. Like that on its own is amazing, and I am really looking forward to flying more brawling ships when the Sino changes come through.
why do you think that the Chino changes are going to mean that you get to fly more brawling ships?
I mean, I can tell you what happens right now, which is that I go in, I brawl, they light a Sino and scram me, and 5 seconds later, I've been alphaed off the field by, you know, 5 super carriers. Right now, or when the Sino changes come through, uh, I can choose to engage targets and know, yes, they might have stuff cloaked, they might have stuff that warps in, but it's not going to be the 5 super carriers.
All right, I think that's a very uh, optimistic hope of the future. But I'll get on board with it. I would love that to be exactly what happened. Um, I know some. Well, we can call them pessimists if we want. Maybe they're realists. Some people are not convinced that it's actually going to change as much as we're hoping for. If heavily bricked recon lights a Sino, a fax jumps to him right away. You're back to not being able to kill the fax, or the Sino or the fax probably, and then you wait a couple minutes while the rest of the cat blob gets ready, and they still just drop the cat blob hammer. Um, is it different? Maybe, or yeah, as someone pointed out, it could just as well be Black Ops battleships. Maybe it'll change. I mean, what I'm hoping for is it's a little more involved now though, and where there's potential for people to make mistakes, I think there will be people that make those mistakes, and we're gonna hopefully this will lead to explosions. I would love to see recons getting blapped, Black Ops battleships getting blapped. I mean, going off of some of the fits that I see dying in nullsec, it will only be a matter of time before we see some really terribly fit Black Ops battleships dying.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Can I just add in here and say that the era of freaking fraternity and other nullsec alliances dropping two or three capitals on one or two esteros in their hostile space, that's over, and I'm very, very happy about that.
I mean, the changes for Sinos is also going to increase the margin of error when it comes to defending their super umbrella. It's going to require everyone to have either a covert ops alt of some sort. It's going to make it a lot harder for them to defend them, giving people like us who dive out of wormholes, kill something, and go back into our hole a more opportunity.
Yeah.
Defensive bubbling is going to be a skill that's going to be very, very, very useful moving forward. People are going to need to start using. I mean, for wormholers at least, they're going to need to have one person doing defensive bubbles to stop that.
For
Yeah.
sure.
And on that note, it kind of evens out the playing field, right? So null secers, they think half a second slower, right? So that buys us more time to test out maybe some doctrines we wouldn't try before. Maybe we don't want to do tricks online. So having them form up proper and take that time, because that's what we're seeing a lot here in nullsec recently, is they're taking a while to form up to respond. They don't immediately have all the intel they want. So, that gives us some opportunity to play around on the grid more with some bigger ships, slower ships, or maybe some experimental stuff. And our biggest nullsec roam recently, well, maybe one of our biggest ever, was post Blackout. So if we can get out there in numbers and have an opportunity to do something, that's a good thing overall, I think.
Now, I know you specifically commented that you guys would call yourselves really logistics was big for you. Uh, do you see the changes to the jump freighters' covert Sino capabilities being a big deal for you guys, Kale?
Probably not for us. Most of the logistics that we do goes through wormholes and is done with DSTs and not with jump freighters so much. I do think that the Sino changes are going to change the way, like the shape that nullsec logistics takes. But I'll be honest, I'm not an expert on that part, and I to the extent that I would predict anything, I wouldn't predict significant changes.
I can't believe that as a C5 Wormhole Corp, you wouldn't consider yourself an expert on nullsec logistics.
I think a lot of it's going to require them to train their Sino alts who are just invalidators, three to like an account, and make them train the force recons, and that's going to be a significant economy boost. Because they're either going to buy skill injectors, or it could be an economy sink. I mean, I'm not an expert on the economy, but it could cause a lot of, I guess, market, because these guys with 30, 40 Sino alts to get all around the universe, they're going to have all of them in force recons or Black Ops battleships, and then those Black Ops battleships are going to be vulnerable wherever they sign up because they can't.
Oh yeah, so there's this whole. I see. As a wormhole, I'm not very familiar with this thing, but I've heard someone say that there are these folks with these multiple Sino networks around that they basically give out to different alliances to use. Yes, they're definitely going to be in salty tears mode right now.
I mean, and you also have to look at Hypnotoad, who's doing the Sinos on all of the Delve Keep stars. I mean, he's going to have to put all of his characters in Black Ops and Force.
So, let me ask a kind of higher level question for you guys. It's not directly impacting probably much of or any of our play styles. Do you think that this change? Do you think this change is heavy-handed? I mean, as CCP changes go, Blackout was of course huge, and some people are calling this one likewise maybe a little too big. It's too heavy-handed. Um, it's not fixing anything. It's just making everything weirder. Without even stepping back from even some of the specifics, what is your overall reaction to CCP's handling of this change?
That's a big question.
Big brain
I
time.
I'm gonna step out on a limb here and say I think that CCP handled this one exactly correctly.
Nice, bold maneuver there.
Thanks.
Can,
I'm
can
inclined to agree with you.
can you be more specific about why they handled it so well?
Yeah. So from my perspective, at least with what I'm interacting with on a day-to-day basis, the biggest problem with Sinos is that every single ratting ship that I ever encounter has a Sino fit. Every single one. And the only response that I ever get, I will say, with the exception of a couple Russian groups out east who I respect to them, they have responded with subcaps, but everybody else responds with capitals. And that's boring. So I am really looking forward to you can't fit a Sino on your good ratting ship. And if you want to have a Sino alt cloak next to it, that's fine. You know, you pay the cost of half speed ratting and you'll get to kill me. Great. Good for you.
Well, I gotta play devil's advocate. I'm completely on your side on this, but I have to say that I was thinking about, because of all of these changes and because they have gates and we don't, is nullsec right now is not as spooky as wormhole space, but it's definitely a bit more scary if you are the resident of nullsec. Your logistics is being cut down from the way you were used to, and everyone knows where you live. You don't know who's coming there. That's like having gates open into our homes all the time, and we don't know what's happening anytime. And on top of that, my defense mechanism of using signed capital ships is now being taken away too. This is some of the most scariest time to be a nullseeker, and I'm very happy to hear that, to be honest.
My my opinion on it, I think it's typical CCP trying to hammer in a nail with a sledgehammer, but I like it. I think it's something that needed to be done, shake things up. There's a lot of talk. If you follow Reddit, I hope you don't, but if you do, a lot of people are complaining, threatening to quit. But I agree with one thing: the long-term health of the game. If this is something that's going to be long-term, something that's going to yield great results, maybe not immediately, but down the line, I'm all for it. It doesn't impact me so much now, but more people playing the game, more groups going to wormhole space, trying it out, it's going to affect us one way or another. So I'm all for it.
You know, I my sympathies would also be with Null, but I think for a long time they've been able to just churn out titans and super capitals at such an alarming pace that it's killing the game. It's killed the game also in low sec when you have dread bombs everywhere, capital bombs everywhere. Basically, there's been such a huge faucet. This is kind of like the culling that needs to happen.
It's also adding the perspective of a force recon on cloaks and gets ready to light a Sino. A big enough subcap plate will one shot that, so they'll get maybe one. It's going to require the SCs to be more cognitive of what's happening on grid, and if they see a recon, they have.
Yeah, and I think the meta right now is obviously going to change to stealth bombers coming in for just hordes of them.
Did any of you guys get the resub offer from CCP earlier this week? And by that I mean over the weekend, I guess. If you had CCP's attempting to cash in on the chaos of Blackout and the soon-to-be Dino changes, so for people that have a lapsed subscription who are currently logged off in a wormhole, they got an offer from CCP to resub for I think it was 15% less, and it had this like full of wormhole memes message, including a praise Bob at the end, but targeting lapsed wormholers to try to lull them back in.
Oh wow!
Did it come via email?
Yeah, so if you ignore your EVE Online emails, then that'd be why you missed it.
And I've
Um,
got 20,000 unread emails, so I'm not going to go searching for
And I do not have a lapsed account, so.
Look at me. No lapsed accounts. All my accounts are Omega. Um, have any of you guys
it.
been
Oh, you
playing
can?
with the Drifter Hives? Have you been playing with the Drifter Hives? Anybody?
Nope.
No.
Nope.
Not here either.
That's what I thought, but I figured I'd ask. So, for people that were unaware, they actually, I don't want to say doubled because I don't know the amount. They significantly increased the number of static null sets that the Drifter Hives had sometime, I think it was last week, might have been 2 weeks ago. So, C16s like, uh, have I think 20 null sec statics now.
Wow.
So if you want to go finding things to kill, you don't have to look as far. Although,
Jeez.
there's drifter hives have their own dangers associated with them. All of the wormholes are in dead space pockets, so no matter what you do, you always land 80 kilometers off the wormhole. And then you have to burn to it, or I think the proper way that people do is they bring boosters with them and they boost their fleet, 20 off and then burn just 20. And they also have roaming drifters in them, which fortunately they're not actually wormhole drifters. They're the Artemis. They're not the Arithmos, so they're not as spooky. But it's been amusing watching the kill boards and some of those like Barbican and Readout and Conflux and stuff. Just watching people trying to take advantage of it and dying.
Does it seem to anyone else that this is kind of like a big gift to wormholers by Hilmar, who, by the way, calls himself a wormholer? I'm just saying.
Wormholer, by the way.
I don't really see it as a gift to wormholers so much. Uh, if anything, I mean the meme is we're next, but I think we are actually next. We have our own ratting methods that are frankly too safe and need to be have some risk added to them.
Oh yes, completely agree with that.
I mean,
Actually, you're totally right. Yeah.
I'm all for it. If we can change up wormhole space, ratting and wormhole space, make it a little bit more challenging, I wouldn't mind.
Yeah, you know what? There must be a lot of non-wormers kind of listening in on this podcast. Maybe it's a good idea if we explain to them exactly how we and how. Okay, all right. So here's
Let's
here's
not spend
here's.
too long talking about ratting. Otherwise, I think we'll watch we're gonna watch that number of live viewers drop really quick when people suddenly realize they're just listening to us talking about ratting.
All right, we keep it quick. We roll away all the other wormholes. The solar system is pretty much isolated from the rest of Eve. You rat your heart's content. The end.
Huh, I do it differently. I get one semi-competent Logi pilot, the other one goes AFK. Everybody shoots that.
I thought the trick was to just throw dreadnoughts at it until it exploded, or until your dreadnought.
I already have high blood pressure.
I feel like CCP is making these changes, and they're making inadvertently, I mean, not intentionally, but inadvertently making wormholes better in the form of play style. They're making it easier to hunt from our.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of it's also just some of the reason that some people say this space is better than that space is core of some of what's getting shaken up. Um, I mean, I think that some of the high level goals of CCP is just about, we need to shake Eve up. Eve is stagnant. Everyone's just sitting around getting richer, and while that's great when you're the person that's sitting around getting richer for the game, I'm not sure that that's best for long term. I mean, Eve has lacked scarcity for a while now, and I mean, honestly, I think some of the like best parts of Eve were generally when you're, clawing your way up and you feel like you're working and aren't getting somewhere, um, instead of, just constantly making heaps of money in either relative or almost pure safety. So Blackout is just, was aimed at interrupting the nullsec bounty flow. Whether or not it succeeded, I think we're still gonna have to wait for CCP. I think the next monthly economic report will be interesting because it'll be pretty much almost the full, a full month of like, most of July had blackout. Actually, I think it's a little over half. But we're gonna see clear changes related to blackout. Um, the Sino changes are targeted at making capital routing more dangerous. Whether or not that will succeed, I think, is debated. And as is, it sounds like we had um, a couple people say some people think it might change a ton. Maybe it won't change a ton. Only thing we'll see. Um, I think just the upping of the risk right now is something that we're seeing, and for wormhole space, I would love it if we could make it more dangerous. Somebody's calling it right out on the money. Please don't let them accidentally make wormhole space safer. CCP's track record of deliberately touching wormhole space to make changes has generally ended poorly. Um,
Well,
You
so
mean it's never happened?
well,
why
good.
don't we there are two things that CCP can do to make wormhole space much more dangerous for while you're running. One is delayed Cosmos signatures for any K162. So any incoming wormhole shows up on your Cosmos signatures list about, I don't know, a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes later. So folks who are ratting in their nesters and rattlesnakes and all, they won't see them coming. Another is that maybe sleepers should have a descan disruption kind of effect. If you're ratting there, then your descan sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. I think those two would make ratting a lot more dangerous.
What about something like more wanders,
Oh
more open
yeah,
holes, and maybe like drifters that roam around, maybe actually take systems, roam a constellation, something that'll warp to an anom if it detects a pilot there. I don't know. Maybe bubbler NPCs, that'd be interesting.
That would be interesting. That would be. I mean, the accuracy of their bubbles would be, I guess, questionable, but same time, I think that would add an interesting aspect to.
yeah, I think that would be amazing.
I'm not.
CCP was actually going to introduce an NPC that bubbled, and then it didn't work. Uh,
They were
the
also going to put a drifter in a C4.
Yeah, there's a lot of half-baked ideas. So part of the reason that the PvE rebalance failed when CCP touched it was CCP started draft designing changes, ran into technical difficulties, a bunch of their plans fell apart, and then they shipped what they had, which is why the changes to, with the Sleepless Avengers, and the drifter all feels kind of shoddy. For people that have been in wormhole space for years, most people saw it as a negative change rather than a positive. People stopped using capitals to farm as much when the money moved from rats I only got if I was using caps to a drifter that I can kill with my Astra House later.
Yeah, I think that right there is one of the key pieces because right now the a lot of the ISK in wormhole ratting is tied most easily to something that you can't move from wormhole to wormhole. So this means bear holes for everybody. And for anyone who's not familiar with what that means, a bear hole is just a second hole that you don't really live in, but you exclusively do PvE in. So it encourages people to spread out, but not to spread out and make content.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably a pit we could really get sucked into, and maybe we've got the right crowd to really talk on that, and maybe we don't. Uh, but I think there's a lot of people in in the two different camps on whether or not bear holes in general are actually necessarily good for wormhole space. It's actually something that I'm hoping to dig into understanding the general opinion of across wormhole space, or if CCP was going to touch PvE, how should it get touched, kind of deal. But
Well, let's be honest. Most of wormholes space is empty. They have a lot of dead structures. A lot of people just are not there. So bear holes, I'm sure there are a lot of dead bear holes out there too. But I would prefer that there were some bear holes so that I have more spots that I can go and attack. There are more statics that I can roll and find those guys and get them. If we somehow were to um, change the game mechanic where it's more efficient for folks to live together in a wormhole and only rat in that one system or through its statics, it will make it more difficult for us to find content, and I think that's kind of where I lean on that.
Yeah, and I think I'm on that same boat as working out of the static. I'm a big fan of that. Bear holes are fine, but you come across a lot of bear holes when you start rolling C5s. I'd rather roll into groups that are active in fleet, even if they're doing PVE in fleet. You got something that'll fight back. I mean, jumping a rattlesnake is fun and all, but I'd rather jump a fleet of them. And yeah, so if we can maybe make ratting in C5s more lucrative, maybe for subcaps, but also making it dangerous where you have to commit. Both groups would have to commit. Maybe we could do something like that. Change like that. Work out of the static more.
Yep, I'm pretty much with James on this one.
Yeah, as am I.
Yeah. Oh, let me just share this one detail with everyone. It was the way Blackout impacted us. Um, we were a small wormhole corp, and we had never killed a capital ship before, and we made this elaborate plan to get this one guy to undock his Phoenix. Part of our plan was to use an even smaller corporation than us to attack one of his structures so that he would undock his Phoenix, thinking, by looking them up on Zkill, that these guys don't have anything that can kill a cap, and they've never been able to fly something, well enough to kill a cap. So he would undock, and then we would log in and kill him, and which is kind of how it turned out. But one of the blackout issues was when Z Killboard Squiz basically said that I'm going to black out Z Killboard, and that threw a huge wrench into our plan because then our victim couldn't look up the Z Killboard and figure out that these guys are easy to kill. So we had to make some plan adjustments at that basic level. Whenever information about wormhole space is taken away, it impacts wormhole space a lot. For example, right now when we scan our chain, we have a list of wormholes with JTAGs. We can look them up on Zkillboard and see if there was recent activity there. And there's a real-time API that we can plug into that tells us if there's any kind of PvP going on in our chain. We get a Discord ping so that we can go join them. That's kind of essential for wormhole corporations, and blacking out Zkill really hurt that aspect of it. So content became a bit more difficult for us to find and for content to find us. I think that was missed by a lot of the exuberance that was being extolled out there about nullsec being deprived of that intel, which was great. I get it, but I feel that wormhole space tends to be overlooked, and changes like that hurt wormhole space. I should just be a bit more mindful of it.
We have a similar tool, and I actually found that I'm perpetually either involved in or hearing debates about shorter chains versus longer chains, and that particular, I guess, temporary change that Squiz made was one that was very beneficial to short chains and sucked if you were relying on longer chains that you didn't have eyes down.
Yeah. Yeah, so we use that as a passive pinging system when we just map a chain out and we're like, okay, we're gonna go do something else.
Do you guys think it's problematic how many people um, play this game for kill males and their kill board? Every so often you see people talking about how Z kills ruined Eve, or kill males have ruined Eve, or kill boards have ruined Eve. Um, because exactly to some of the degree that I think we were just touching on is, kill boards provide so much intel, provide fits, provides how likely is this guy to be bait. Um, but also, I think kill boards are one thing that also pushes people towards being more risk adverse than maybe they would without a lot of that intel. Is if I have to decide between taking the fight based on what I can see and figure out with my scouts and scanners, or just not taking the fight, some people are going to choose one, some people are going to choose the other. But right now, with between Dotland and Zkill, it helps with making those decisions for me. It actually substitutes good scouting sometimes.
Yeah, for the longest time, I mean, I guess this is what true for every Wormhole Corp, where we're just sitting there cloaked, and someone comes through. Now we know everything about them immediately, about how many friends they have and what times they play, and like you said about the fit, so that we know what to counter before we even start the fight. They've lost it because of Zkill. I get that, but on the other hand, I mean, as a small corp, we've been enjoying it. We're not as notorious as some of the other corporations here, so there isn't as much intel available for us. I think, on the one hand, I would like to use it to find content, but on the other hand, I do acknowledge that it gives way too much intel to people.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind cutting down on the amount of intel. In terms of sort of the other side of this, of people who play for the kill board, I can tell all the listeners here what I tell the folks in my own corp, which is that if you've got too much green on your kill board, you are not taking enough risks.
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
my kill board's always been pretty 50-50, and I'm sorry to interrupt
no, go for it.
you. My kill board's always been 50-50. I'm not afraid to lose shit. It's part of the game. That's a lot of the issue I see is people are too risk averse. I don't want to lose this. Well, and I understand the sentiment, but it's pixels.
Yeah.
Some people get really upset when they lose their space pixels, though.
I've noticed that the people who get the most upset are the people who grind for that is because that's all their time. But if they would just grind in real life, buy some plex, and it would be much, much easier. Losing dollars is as not as bad as, to me, in my opinion, as grinding my hours away and then getting the disc and then losing that.
and then crying.
Man.
With Zkill, I'll make a quick comment. Yeah, I think looking outwards, it is a problem. Too much intel on our group and on your group. So it's kind of a pain because we can easily predict, what you're going to fly, and you could do the same. But looking inwards, though, when we talk about Z-kill within the corp, it's actually kind of competitive. You've got pilots wondering, okay, can I top this guy? Can I get out there and get some more kills? So I think having a board like that and access to be able to share it amongst a group, that's a big thing that maybe a lot of people don't talk about, the plus side of the kill board.
So I'm gonna
Yes. So,
uh, corral us into or towards kind of the next little topic that I wanted to dig into, just so we can make sure we cover everything here. Um, and I think we've already started talking about it, but uh, we've got September. We had Blackout hitting in July, and it's continuing. September, we've got Sino changes. What do you guys think? What do you guys hope for? What would you guys love to hear that CCP is touching and fiddling with next for the era of chaos in October? Especially if wormhole space is next, for example, what would you guys love to see happening next?
Delayed incoming wormhole information being displayed on probe scanners.
So you're specifically saying, when the new sig pops up, you'd like it if it didn't actually show up right away.
Yeah, yeah. Give us a few minutes to scan these people down. I mean, we're also going to only have to use D-scan, right? We can't just drop probes if anyone can see that. So, yeah, I think that's fair.
Or maybe some wanderers that you can't roll, like the frigate ones that are extremely difficult. They regenerate. Or if you really wanted to change it up, you could always give the C6 wormholes a second static. That'd be nice.
Trying to figure out how I word what I want to say. I feel like there needs to be a more, I guess, more of an ISK sync out there because of how much wealth has been built up prior to the era of chaos.
In terms of changes to wormhole space, I'll be honest, I have no idea what CCP is going to do. Um, I'm a lot happier about the state of wormhole space right now than I was about the state of nullsec before the blackout came. So I don't have a lot of specific things where I feel this has to happen. I'd love to see changes to get rid of Astra House drifter farming and
Here.
to nerf the MJDs and friend or foe missiles in C5 Anon ratting, and I personally do all of that stuff. So, uh, I would like to see nerfs to those, but I don't really have anything specific that I need.
Guys, what would. So, look, right now, lots of nullsec people are terrified about the changes. Can we think about this question in a way that asks, what are you terrified? What would happen? What would be like something that would really scare you about wormholes if they made this change?
Building supers and wormholes.
Oh God, that would be
Yeah, that'd be
awful.
pretty
I'm
scary.
sorry, yeah, I couldn't resist, but
No, well, personally, I think if they suddenly made all wormhole citadels offline for a day in a week, that would be scary.
Or cloaky wormhole generators.
Oh God.
Yeah, you don't see them. You got a hole in your system.
oh, that'd be cool.
You got some dirty nullsecers coming in.
Yeah, but then they wouldn't understand mechanics. They'd bring their fleet through, collapse the hole behind them, and then they'd all be like,
You cut out there.
I'm sorry. Their Logi wing would be like left behind. They would come through and collapse the hole behind them. They wouldn't understand the mechanics of how wormholes work. I mean, just dirty nullsec.
Okay, it's a good idea now.
By the way, scrams and sites, yes, absolutely. I think that's a big deal. They need to move away from the disruption.
So there's a lot of ideas being tossed around in the Twitch chat. Um, what to each of you guys is, let's say CCP's giving you a one free, we're gonna do a thing. What would be your number one ask to fix wormhole space, or if you're of the camp that says it's not broken, how would you make wormhole space better?
So I can start this one off. And this is a change that even the people in my own corp, when I've mentioned it to them, they tell me I'm crazy. Death clones in wormhole space would be a massive change that would be massive chaos, and I don't know if it would be good, but I'd be interested to see it.
Okay, so you're referring to when I get potted, I just show right back up in my home system.
I like
Yep.
that.
Oh no, how are we going to evict people then?
You're gonna evict them by
Careful.
killing them repeatedly until they run out of ships and their structures die.
That's you know it's already tough to evict people. This is just gonna make it really difficult, and people can spam Ritarus like crazy. That's gonna be ridiculously hard.
Yeah, so actually related to that, I ran an eviction recently where we deliberately did not keep hole control, like intentionally left it open 24/7 to see what would happen. And it turned out fine. We even won the eviction.
Well, how about this? One of my corp members had an interesting idea. Um, what if you could jump to a what do you call those? What the roracles that have those clone vats? If you could take that out to lowsec, and you could jump your way straight to those, and then you could bring those into the wormhole. I think that would be one cool way of doing it.
That would be an interesting way to.
I mean, I think that works. I mean, if your Rorqual goes out into, uh, like if you jump it out into a case base, people can jump clone to its clone base, or at least it worked that way many years ago when I actually tried that one. Whether or not I haven't followed the changes or how that shit works though.
I think if CCP were to ask me, what big change would you want? I would go with quality of life things, maybe more bookmarks,
Oh
Alliance
yes.
bookmarks. Yeah.
I mean,
You know,
I hear that they're a work in progress, but then again, I suppose we've also been hearing that for a while.
Uh,
yeah, don't tease me.
yeah, no, but there wasn't there a big announcement recently about it too?
Well, they talked about it at Eve Toronto. Um, they said, but I believe it's at CCP. All the developers they're allowed to spend a certain amount of their time working on anything they want. Someone's pet project was ACL bookmarks, and I guess it's nearing the point where they thought that they were getting ready to talk about it. I you know um
They
I
did leave
don't.
a few things out. I never caught the Ask Me Anything on YouTube for Toronto for Eve North. I think I know why. I do remember Deason sitting in the front chanting "No more local" and "Down with Sinos," and here we are. So maybe it was a spoiler. I don't know.
But I guess we'll hear about it in the near future. I hope. Um, that'd be a fun addition coming in October. Era of Chaos, Wormhole Space. We gave you the bookmarks you wanted for. Back to fucking up somebody else's part of space.
Yeah, how would that not be a complete gift for wormholers, right? Like with a bow on.
So, well, so Kale got to throw his 1 cent in there. Who else has one ask of CCP for Wormhole Space Chaos in October?
I second the Alliance bookmark.
Okay, we
Oh
got.
yeah. You know what? You could actually have another entire podcast about bookmarks in Alliance bookmarks in normal space and how that's going to affect the dynamics of how people live.
It'll add a great espionage aspect to it as well too.
Oh yes. Yes.
What would be chaotic is putting local in wormhole space for a week.
Oh, that would be
Do
annoying.
not give them ideas. That's not nice.
No, no, that's
Sorry.
not. What? Yeah, why? Why would you do this?
Why would
Gonna
you
have
do that?
to X on that one. I don't like
Yeah,
this plan.
can we
Oh boy.
Yeah, edit that
so
out.
when that happens, we know who to blame.
Oh God.
No, we won't take credit for that one.
No, you don't. There's no taking credit.
Redact.
We're assigning the blame.
Everyone, James Rapture. Remember that name, James Rapture.
Eviction coming soon to your
So
C6 Static
yeah,
5.
Yes.
that C6 are gonna be a C6 much longer. But I think that would add an interesting level of chaos. But a week is
So
the
we're
amount
not
of shit talking in local.
so we're not done just yet, but I wanted to throw out there to our 90 live viewers that we've got here. If anyone has things that you want me to ask while we've got everybody here, got 2 or 3 minutes to toss your questions out there, and if they're not terrible, I'll actually ask them. And we're gonna, I think, start gravitating towards for um, closing us up here. I'm sure you can look up his J code online. Um, but anything else any of you guys wanted to touch or throw out there?
Yeah, there were a couple questions way up at the start of the stream about newbies in wormhole space. I neglected to mention this when I was introducing myself, but like one of the things that sound does, and I think one of the things that a lot of wormhole corps do, is take in newbies and teach them. So I know for us, like if you can fit a cloak, you're probably qualified to join us, and we
We're
will
the
teach
same
you the
way.
rest.
Yeah, we're the same way at loosely affiliated. If you can fit a cloak, you're competent, halfway competent. You don't have to be fully competent.
Be
We'll
able to
accept you and
breathe
teach you the
and cloak.
ropes.
That's the bar. You heard it here.
We're
That's the bar for loosely affiliated and sound.
Well, for
Cl-
Ronin 1, it's
you're
simply
setting our
fly
bar a little higher,
Stradios and
but we
you're
don't
good.
require breathing.
Oh, don't even have to be alive.
just thank you for having us on.
Yeah, man, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, thanks.
So there are a couple decent questions here. Uh, Somebody asked about the tax change. Uh, I'll throw my 2 cents out in case it also speaks for everybody. So I'm not completely sure that the tax changes were a hit as far as what CCP was trying to accomplish. As a wormholer, I make slightly less money now, simply because taxes eat up more of my sales. Even with perfect skills, I still make less money selling blue loot than I used to for absolutely no change to my playstyle. So that kind of sucks a bit. Not enough for me to necessarily go rioting, but it's a little bit of a frown there. But I think the larger issue was it effectively just drives more of the trading towards it lets the people running case-based markets make more money when many of them are already pretty fairly entrenched. I mean, unless the agreement between the power breaks up, the keep star and perimeter is going nowhere. Um, Off the top of my head, I can't remember, but there's some people that have speculated how much money that thing's making. And I'm sure it's paid for several keep stars over itself. Probably tons, really, just going off of the trade volume of injectors and Plex going through that thing. And now that Jita's taxes have gone up, it's getting slowly but surely more attractive to move your trading deals over to the keep star. Um, so I'm not sure that I mean, they were hoping to make trading a bit livelier. They wanted to hit some people's wallets for bots and people that are doing tons and tons and tons of market stuff, since I guess some of them make too much money. Um, Whether or not that's going to succeed, I have no idea, but it feels like, compared to some of the other changes we've talked about that did, I think, do well. The Sinos Blackout, they've been good, and I think they've been good for game. I'm not convinced that the taxes are going to significantly improve the game there.
Well, Zuki, let me just ask you this: do you know if CCP was aware that this is going to actually impact wormhole income?
They were made aware. If they weren't, it's something that I made sure that they understood the impact. I mean, mind you, I never had any expectation that me saying, "Hey guys, this is gonna hurt wormhole space," was going to persuade or change anything. But it was mentioned to them.
Yeah, as long as they understand that these changes are having an impact. I personally, I don't think the changes were so significant that they would significantly change my style or my mood of playing. But as long as they understand that these things are having an impact, maybe the cumulative effect of all of these changes is going to dawn on them in the future.
Another good question. Some of the blackout changes and maybe the Sino changes, I think what something we have kind of seen with some of it is you're seeing some consolidation of ratting. Uh, some people have said that blackout's just pushing people further into your super cap umbrellas that some groups have set up, and so Big Bill the Boss 3 asked if we're concerned about the shrinking fields that we can hunt in out in Nullsec.
I can tell you that I'm not. I have boated a deep space transport 20 jumps unescorted through outer passage without getting killed in the process. So sooner or later, someone in nullsec is going to discover that once they get out of the obvious targets, they can do things that they would not have expected they would be able to do. And once they figure that out, people are going to start taking advantage of it.
I'd largely agree with that sentiment. Anyone else have thoughts on that question? All right, we're scrolling
I'm
through here. Go ahead.
I'm not going to say that hunting fields are drying up. I just say you have to. I feel like you have to get more creative with them. You got to get more creative with how you kill things rather than just dropping, killing, and warping away. You have to get creative and use actual tactics.
Yeah, I mean, I think some people might say that's also maybe a little bit for the better. As a hunter, there's a little more effort involved in some cases, I think now to if you want to keep getting some of the kills. Sometimes it's easier if people are paying a little attention. I mean, the amount of times I think we've jumped out in from of nullsec wormholes since Blackout started and actually found people that truly have no idea where there has gone up. But we've also found that some of the people ratting seem to be a little more responsive and maybe a little readier than they used to. But I don't have a tremendously large sample set. Um, so I don't think I saw any more other big, great questions here. So I think we're gonna wrap it up here. So we're settling in around an hour, which I think is a time frame that most people tell me is generally great for. I do want to give all of you guys, if you have any other quick shout outs or words you wanted to throw out to the stream.
Ronin one is recruiting, guys. Come
Ronin
join
1
our
is
small
recruiting.
gang, Chihuahuas.
Loosely affiliated is recruiting anyone you
And,
don't need to be able to breathe.
all right, if you can't breathe, loosely affiliated recruiting. If you like Chihuahuas, Ronin 1 is recruiting. How about you, James and Kale?
Well, I want to quote the great Galataki on this one. You know, in this game, you got to eat the whole ass, bro. Ain't no playing around. You just got to get in there and eat the whole ass. Know what I'm saying? So, play
I
hard.
mean, I've got eat ass tattooed on my arm, so yeah.
Well, these are some people we have on the show tonight.
I think all of us are recruiting. Sound certainly is. But I'll say one other thing, which is just for all of you out there, you know, find something that you didn't think you could do and go do it.
Find a thing and do it. All right. Well,
How strangely motivational of you.
yeah, these are thought-provoking final words for tonight. Um, so I never know how many people that are watching or listening to the stream later are wormholers that listen to this and half of it's preaching to the choir. But so I'll hopefully be back in a 2-ish weeks. And if anybody wants to hit me up with guests you want to hear from, topics you want to hear about, or just general feedback, I love hearing from people that listened or watched the show. And we'll, so I can try to make the future ones nice and great. If you're a wormholer, keep doing your thing. If you're not a wormholer, uh, I'd love to imagine that we've successfully converted at least one person. But if even if not, we'll keep bringing to you wormhole stuff. And if you're ever considering taking the plunge out into wormhole space, drop me a line. And if you didn't hear what you're looking for on this show or one of the others, I can help you find the right home. So, without further ado, I'm going to thank everybody, and I hope everybody has a wonderful Monday night, and or whichever day or time it is when you're listening to this. And thanks for coming on, everybody. Thanks again to all my guests, and thank you everybody for listening.
Thanks for having us.
And
Thank you.
because I keep getting told I don't say it enough, I'm Exuki Z, and thank you for coming to the whole story.